Hello, friends, and welcome back to Mark My Brain. Today's topic will be building habits as a tool for change. And during the course of the episode, I will touch on questions, including why we should build habits or why we should proactively build our habits. Why not just brute force them? Why go through the process of learning how to properly build them? And what are some of the basic principles of building a habit? What has personally worked for me and my own tips and tricks from my own life? And then what is, in my opinion, the most important principle of productivity in general, which kind of ties in with the whole building habits thing. So let's just jump straight into it. When I'm speaking about building habits as a tool for change, I'm mainly thinking about a change in your life, which can either be, internal or external. Either you are forced to change something in your life, either because of work, because of your close ones, because of some unforeseen circumstances arising in your life, or the change can arise, or the motivation to change can arise internally. We talked in the last episode about inspiration. So maybe you have just been, very introspective lately and discovered some new ambitions inside of yourself. And now you want to follow through and try to follow them. And in my opinion, building habits or habits in general are one of the most important things a man can do. Because, if I'm not mistaken, one of the old Greeks said that we are what we continuously do, which, is basically habits. We are our habits. So let's talk a bit more in detail about them. So why not just brute force the change, so to speak? I want to become a marathon runner, so why not just, brute force it and go for a 20-mile run tomorrow morning and do it every day after that? Because not only does that require extreme discipline and willpower, which you might have or may not have, but usually when you want to build a habit, you are building a lifestyle. As we talked about, you are what you continuously do. You are your habits. So it's not just about doing the thing; it's about building a lifestyle. And I'm not sure if I want my life to just be brute forced, if you know what I mean. That doesn't kind of seem right. Of course, there is a time and place for such extremes, for the show of discipline and willpower. It can also be a great challenge if you want to put that on yourself, sometimes even necessary. But with habits, I think that it's smarter to focus on longevity, or maybe more precisely on consistency of them, than just the mere intensity. That's kind of my kind of long intro into why make the effort to build habits properly. And I can give you the example of consistency versus intensity from my own life. For example, I really enjoy working out in the gym, but in the past, when I was starting out, I had the problem that every time I went to the gym, I said to myself, okay, I'm already here. Let's just push myself to the absolute limit. And it felt good from a certain point, but it also just totally ruined me for the next couple of days. Almost couldn't move, and almost every time I put such extreme intensity into my workouts, I don't know, I hurt my traps, usually, or some other muscle, and then I couldn't, for example, really properly work out for the next week or two. So, the intensity coming from a good place with good intention, it unfortunately did more damage than good, I think. It would have been better for me to just focus on going, for example, every other day to the gym and not doing the absolute maximum I can do, but maybe 90%, so I have proper recovery, I can do it over a long period of time without the threat of injury. And yeah, I think that's a great example of the consistency versus intensity. It's also worth mentioning that these intense workouts, although I felt like great in the moment I did them, because there is some fun in the intensity, they never really brought me the results I was looking for. Those, I think, also come with the consistency. So first thing, about building a habit, I think one of the most important thing is considering the resistance you have towards doing a certain thing. The basic principle is that you should try to make good habits easy to do with the least amount of resistance. And of course, it goes the other way around too. Make the bad habits you want to get rid of hard to do, build some resistance there. How can something like that look like? For example, if you want to start running consistently, make the small effort to prepare each day beforehand. For example, prepare your running shoes, your running clothes. So if you want to go for a run every morning, you don't have to, search for these things or choose the clothing in the morning when it can be much more difficult. You see even the smaller things as sort of an obstacle, but if you prepare it beforehand, the day before, it's much more easier. You just, you wake up, you slip into those, and you just go for the run. There's much less resistance. The same thing I think can be said about, for example, eating healthy. It's very hard to eat healthy if you decide in the moment, okay, I want to eat healthy, but without any plan, any preparation. What should I do? And if you're somewhere in the city, in the work, at university, for example, then it's hard, unless you again make the small effort and do a meal prep, for example, and then eating healthy becomes much, much more easier. You prepare your healthy meals the day before, and the next day you just reap the rewards. You eat it. You don't have to worry about what should I eat, where should I eat if I want to eat healthy, stuff like that, and it becomes much more easier. I think that's a very important principle. Playing around with the resistance, which also worked tremendously in my own life. And of course, we touched that it goes the other way around. If you have a bad habit you want to get rid of, try to build as much resistance around it as possible, so it is as difficult for you to do the bad habit as it can be. For example, me, I'm a big procrastinator, always scrolling Instagram, or I have the tendency to do it. So if I need to focus, I need to study, I need to work, I just put my phone ideally in the other room. If that's not possible, I put it on the other side of the room, so it's just not around me. I can't reach it easily. And then, even though I might have the tendency, even the muscle memory to just reach for the phone and just see the stories of my friends, it's not around. I can't do it, so I just focus on the work. And it becomes much more easier to overcome this procrastination or the chronic scrolling on social media if you make this small effort, just throw the phone on the other side of the room, and a lot of headache just goes away because you don't have to worry about it anymore. So for me, for example, this principle was extremely helpful. Last thing I want to mention regarding the resistance, I think it can also mean changing your social environment. Try to be around people who have the habits you want to have, because then it's of course much more easier to do it, especially if the other ones are encouraging you. And it can also mean distancing yourself from people who you know will encourage your bad habits. Or if you have, for example, a group of friends that every time you hang out, you do something you're not proud of, you just get blackout drunk, and you know that it's just not how you want to be. Maybe it's time to think about not joining these hangouts, for example, of course. So that's resistance, a big thing, I think. And the other point, or the next point, is making the habits you are building into, or incorporating them into your identity. I sort of touched on that in the beginning, because when you are building your habits, you're sort of building your life. But again, being conscious about it, I think, makes a huge difference. This principle is basically just a change of framework or point of view. When you're trying to incorporate a new habit in your life, don't think about it as I have to do this, but instead try to focus on the person you are trying to become. So not I have to do this, but I am someone who does this stuff. As an example, if you are trying to exercise regularly, try not to think about it in terms of I have to go exercise today because I want to get in shape, but maybe more in terms of I'm someone who exercises and does sports regularly. It becomes, I don't know, for me, again, this is just my personal experience, but for me, this was a huge thing or change in mindset, how I think about it, and it helped, again, do the things easier. It was then easier to just slip into the good habits because I'm someone who does these things. So of course I will do it. It's not something you are trying to break yourself over, but you are already someone who does these things. Or if you think about yourself as someone who does these things, it will become easier to do them. Another example can be not to think about your university assignments in terms of I have to do my part of the assignment because others told me to, but maybe in terms of I am a reliable person and a good team member, so of course I will do it. I hope that you can feel the difference, because for me, for example, it's huge. And last but not least, I also want to talk about scale when building a new habits, especially if the effort to build a new habit follows some intense motivation, or you get inspired to do something. It can be very easy to just focus on the big goals, and you are trying to do as much as you can and achieve as much as you can, which again, there is a time and place for that. But I would again emphasize that consistency is much more important than intensity, and you can sort of get burnt out very quickly if you just focus on the sheer amount of work or on the sheer intensity of it. So don't be afraid, or maybe don't be ashamed to start small. It can be something like, I'll just do 10 minutes of reading every day, or I just do 10 squats every day, or every time I wake up, I just do one push-up. But it's the process of ingraining that habit into your lifestyle, which is much more important than how much of the stuff you actually do. Because of course, with the intensity, you can play around after that. If you're building a habit, it's probably for a long period of time. It's not something you want to do for a week. Then I doubt it's a habit. So you will have plenty of time to change how much of something you do. If you read for 10 minutes or if you read for an hour, you can slowly work yourself towards that. But in the beginning, I think if you want an easy way to build a habit, just start small, don't be afraid, make it everyday achievable goal, and that's the way to go. That's the way to build consistency, in my opinion. Now, on the part what personally was a great help to me when building a habits, or some just tips and tricks from my own life, I really enjoy doing to-do lists. And I know it's something that you've probably heard a million times before, but I don't know, just for me, it's something about putting it down on paper, ideally the day before what you want to do the next day. If you put it down on the paper, it becomes sort of like a mission statement. And then even if you are, I don't know, procrastinating, or you're not really feeling, I don't really want to do the thing, just because it's on the piece of paper, something just pushes you towards doing it. Or at least in my case, that's how it works. So you can experiment with that. Also, the gamifying the habits. It sounds maybe silly, but it's also something that really worked for me. Doing some small challenges. For example, if I told myself I want to move around more, or I want to do more exercise, I just made myself a promise or a little challenge that for every episode of a series I'll watch, I'll do 20 squats. And 20 squats, for me, it's not a big deal. You can do it in a minute. But if you incorporate it in your life, the squats start stacking, and it's just something fun to do. And it helps on your journey to become someone who exercises more, or someone who is more in shape, for example. So again, you can try experimenting with it, what will work for you, what will not. And now for the last part of the episode, I want to touch on what is, in my opinion, the fundamental principle of productivity. And that is simply that you have to do the work. And I know, wow, mind blown, but it's true. I feel like, especially today, there are so many people that are researching, what is the best productive method for my studies, how can I optimize this and that, listening to productivity podcasts, and reading some self-improvement books, which is all great. If it helps you grow and learn, I support that wholeheartedly. But none of those things help you actually finish the task at hand. It doesn't progress the work. No amount of preparing, talking about the work, or talking about your goals will get you any closer to finishing the task. Only actually doing it. So, yes, the actual work has to be actually done. This reminds me of a quote I heard, I think, at Chris Williamson podcast. I don't know if it's his quote or not, but I really like it. The quote goes, "The magic you are looking for is in the work you are avoiding." Pretty self-explanatory, in my opinion. So if you want to change, define who or what kind of person you want to be, design your day-to-day life around that, and build habits that move you in the direction you want to go. Don't shy away from trying different things, like the to-do lists I mentioned, or some challenges, or some of the time management methods or other productivity methods. But Also, don't be afraid to discard them if you feel like they don't work for you. And also, don't forget that, no amount of preparing, no amount of writing to-do lists actually help you do the work itself. You actually have to do it. So sometimes it's just best to simply start. I feel like there's no one correct formula for this, just a few basic principles I tried to go over in this episode. So yeah, go get them, Tiger. Best of luck with building a better life for yourself and better habits. I'm supporting you, I'm rooting for you. And until next time, bye bye.